What is innovation?
Customer needs change every day. You got to be able to meet them.
Be able to spot human talent and to be a good leader.
Dream of things that never were and ask why not.
You have to keep creating.
Make people's lives easier.
The future. It's recognizing the future.
Reimagine what is possible.
Creating something entirely different.
Solving a problem creatively.
Valley, China, and all over the world.
Welcome to our show. I'm Diana Ding, and today we're going to talk about the legacy of General Stilwell. We're so honored to have our guest speaker here, and he's Mr. John Easterbrook. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Yes, and John is the grandson of General Stilwell. General Stilwell is the person that helped Chinese to defend Japanese, to win the World War II. And this year is the 70th anniversary of World War II. We're so happy that my friend Grace and Peter Wang introduced me with John and told me about the story. And they're so passionate. And when they mentioned about your grandfather, and I was so touched. And I want the more Chinese people to learn about his story and about what you are doing right now. So tell us something about your grandfather.
Well, my grandfather, of course, had a great respect and admiration for the Chinese people. Mm-hmm. And in fact, his association with the Chinese people really got started in 1920 when he was the Army's first Chinese language student. And he went to Peking to learn the language.
1920s, so that's probably the earliest American soldier went to China.
Well, I think there were American soldiers there before that, but again, he was the first Chinese language student
so
in the
he
Army.
speaks good Chinese.
He spoke fluent Chinese, fluent Mandarin.
That's great, yes. So he went there to learn Chinese for 3 years?
For 3 years, he was a language student, and during part of that time, he was out in Shanxi province, where he was designated as the chief engineer on a construction of a famine relief road out there. And for months, he was out there working elbow to elbow with Lao Baixing and constructing this road. And I think that's where he first really began to understand the Chinese character and came to appreciate the Chinese.
So he actually worked side by side with Lao Baixing.
He did.
So what's his impression to Chinese people?
Well, he summed it up very well in his writing. And he said, the Chinese people are fundamentally great.
Fundamentally great.
Fundamentally great.
Okay.
No bars of caste or religion. And he said they're honest, frugal, industrious, cheerful, independent, tolerant, friendly, and courteous.
I agree all of that, except one, cheerful. Well, you know, I was in China when I was a child, and I don't see many people that are that cheerful, but all the others, I totally agree with him.
But the Chinese people have a great sense of humor.
Yes, that's different, yes. Yeah. Different Eastern humorous, yes. So actually, though, so he actually went back to China after that.
Yes, his next tour was in 1935, or 1936 to 1939, when he was assigned to the 15th U.S. Infantry in, at that time, Tientsin.
Well, we can see he was surrounded by many Chinese people, and why people like him. What kind of person he is?
Well, he's a very low-key person. He was a very modest person. And when he would go out and travel in China, He lived like the Chinese did. He ate like the Chinese did. He traveled like the Chinese did, boat, on foot, whatever. And I think he really kind of became almost a part of them.
Actually, he passed away when you were at age of 6. So how did you get to know so much about him?
Well, of course, my grandmother lived considerably longer, and would hear stories from her and from my mother, and my father, who served with my grandfather during the war in Burma.
So actually, you know, your father at that time was working with the Kuomintang.
Yes.
国民革命军, yes. You know the Chinese words of this, right? So help China to fight against Japanese.
Yes. Of course, at that time, the U.S. recognized the Kuomintang as the ruling party in China, and that was who they were dealing with.
Yeah. So that's also part of the story, part of the history, which we didn't know when we were children, when we were a child.
Yes. And it's gradually now coming to light through a number of ways. But it's a part of Chinese history, and the truth must come out.
Yes, yes, that's why we're here today. So actually you got this information from Hoover Library?
A lot of all of Stilwell's papers are at the Hoover Archives at Stanford University. And he was a prolific writer. So there are many, many documents there to digest if one wants to do that. And it gives insights into his character and what he was doing.
So in early 20s, your grandfather actually went to China and fell in love with people there. And actually this has continued as a legacy for your whole family, right?
Indeed it has, yes. My mother picked it up once China and the U.S. reestablished relations. My mother and my aunt made a number of trips over to China.
Yes, I see this picture that your mother and your aunt with Song Qingling.
Yes, my mother reestablished contacts with a number of people, because Song Qingling probably at the head of that list, because she and General Stilwell during the war got along extremely well. And General Stilwell had great respect for Song Qingling because she loved China and the Chinese people so much.
Yes, that's right. And Song Qingling also wrote something for your grandfather.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So what did she say?
If I might.
Yes, please.
Song Qingling said, General Stilwell always carried the interests of the Chinese people in his heart, and he foresaw the strength and unity of the Chinese people, creating a new and powerful China. I look on him as a great friend. His steadfastness in principle gave me reassurance in my work to help the people of China. The Chinese people will never forget his faith and friendship.
Wow. Years your grandfather passed away. Your mom, your family still continued this, and just now we mentioned about Song Qingling, and also she connect with this picture is
Yes, that's Wang Bingnan.
Wang Bingnan.
Yes,
Yeah.
very, very warm and very courteous man.
Wow, you know those are also Kang Ke-qing and Zhang Aiping.
Yes,
Yeah.
and Huang Hua.
Huang Hua. Wow, those are the Huang Hua was the first ambassador of
China
representing
to the
China
UN.
to the yeah, that's right. Wow. So, but your grandfather was very low key when you were a child, and you didn't really know about this, right?
No, I really didn't. And to me, he was grandfather. But he was absent so much because he was over in China and Burma so much of the time when I was growing up until the time I was 6. But and I only really can remember him on a couple of instances.
But he was really the person that, you know, led your whole family to be this friendship to China.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Because my mother spent a lot of her childhood over there, as did all the other Stilwell children. And they developed the same respect and admiration for the Chinese people.
So after many years, your mom and your aunt went back to China and to follow your grandfather's step?
Well, I think, yeah, not so much to follow his steps, maybe to renew these friendships that had existed so many years ago.
Yes.
And
yeah, we see this picture, and that's, most people have passed away in this picture. But there's a little girl
yes.
there,
Yes.
standing at the corner here.
Well, this is a very interesting story behind that picture, because that picture came from the Stilwell collection at the Hoover Archives. And one year I was going to Kunming, and so I got copies of that picture and a couple others that were taken at the same time, and took them over to Kunming. I met a historian there by the name of Ge Shuya, and I showed that to him and asked him, where was that taken? He said, well, of course, Dragon Gate.
Longmen, yes.
But he was interested in the pictures for a historical perspective because there were so many Kuomintang generals in those pictures. And he later showed it to the grandson of General Pan Yu-kun, a man by the name of Yan Huan. And Huan's a good friend of mine now.
Oh.
And
Pan Yu-kun was the commander of the Xing Yi Jun.
well, first of all, he commanded the 50th Division in Burma, and later, I think, became the commander of the new First Army.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. So actually, you showed the picture, and he helped you to find the little girl.
Well, Yan Huan is the one that tracked down this little girl and found that she was, her name is Huang Minnan.
Huang Mingnan.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
Huang
she's
Mingnan.
living in Beijing. And so a couple years later, I made very good copies of that picture and one other that she was in, and took them over to her and gave it to her. And she had never seen those pictures before.
That's interesting, you know, when this picture shows she's only a little girl, and later on when you meet with her, she's already, with some gray hairs.
Middle age, yeah.
Yes, yes, that's right. And she turned out as the daughter of Huang Wei.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, yes. And Huang Wei is the 国民革命军第9团的团长, and he was also the 67军的师长. And he was captured on 1948 and was released on 1975.
Yeah.
And he passed away in 1989.
Yes.
Yeah, wow, that's such a history.
Yes.
Yeah, actually he stayed in China the rest of his life. Then you family reconnect with them.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
It's so heartwarming.
Yes.
To be able to do these reconnections and meet these people, and not the least of which, of course, is providing them with pictures and or other documents that they'd never seen before.
Yeah, and I also heard that Zhu De gave your father an album.
Well, actually, yes. When my grandfather left China in 1944, Zhu De sent him a photo album. And that had been in the family for all those years up until 1967, when my mother took that back and gave it back to Kang Ka-ching.
Well, Kang Ka-ching must be really, you know, as she's the wife of Zhu De. Yeah, she must be really touched.
I think so.
Yes.
I think so,
Old
yes.
friends reunion.
Yes.
Yes. And also we see a picture of this man, and look at him. Yeah, this is both the picture of him.
Yes.
So he's
during the period 1920 to 1923, when my grandfather was the language student, he progressed so quickly. He had a very great fluency and ability in languages. As he progressed so quickly that he just needed a tutor instead of just going to school. And this gentleman, Mr. Guan, had been in the imperial court and was now, at that time, teaching Chinese at this school in Peking. So he hired him as a tutor, and he became like a grandfather.
No wonder
to the
your
children.
grandfather's Chinese is so good, because he's as a personal tutor.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
But after they left in 1923 and came back in 1936, they brought Mr. Guan down to live with the family again in
that's great.
Tianjin.
Oh, so later on, actually, this is your family, your grandfather's family with this tutor.
Yes,
This is your grandfather and your mom, and this is your mom.
yes.
Yes. So then, what happened next when you reunion? He probably already passed away.
Well, he, as I said, lived with a family in Tianjin from 36 to 39. I'm sorry, 26 to 29. And then in 1935, when Stilwell was reassigned to China as the attaché in the U.S. legation, they contacted Mr. Guan again and persuaded him to come and live with the family once more.
As a grandpa and also a tutor.
Yes.
Yes.
But unfortunately, he passed away shortly thereafter.
Oh, okay. So that's the story. But actually, your family went back to China and actually found his granddaughter, right?
Well, the way that happened was that a good friend of ours, Li Jing, who is a writer for a magazine in Beijing, wrote an article about Stilwell and included mention of Mr. Guan and had that picture that was taken in Tianjin in there. And shortly after it was published, a lady contacted her and said, I am the granddaughter
of Mr. Guan.
Mr. Guan.
Oh.
And my mother, when she had traveled to China many times, always tried to find descendants of Mr. Guan, but was unsuccessful. But thanks to Li Jing and her article, we reconnected with Guan Rui, and I've given her all the pictures, copies of all the pictures I have of her grandfather. And to her great credit, she has enlarged those pictures and put them in a very big album. Very, very nice.
What a nice story. So this is the way that your family continued this friendship with Chinese people and
Yes.
reunion with those descendants.
Yes, and it's so heartwarming to meet these people, and they remember so well, as do so many of the Chinese people.
Wow, this is also covered by CCTV4 about your family story.
Yes.
他是二战中统领中国战区的统帅，
Frequently countermanded what Stilwell was trying to do.
却在抗战未胜利之时被召回美国。
My father, when he was with my grandfather in Burma,
他是史迪威将军的外孙，70年前的缘分在他手中得以延续。中国为史迪威家族带来什么？
And so your family actually started a new journey with Stewart Scholarship for the Chinese students.
yes, that happened probably in the late 70s, about 1979, when my mother and aunt and 10 other people were on a tour sponsored by the Friendship Association. And when they came back, they decided they needed to do something nice for the Friendship Association, so they invited a member of the Friendship Association to come over, live in the homes of the members of the tour, and take a class at then Monterey Institute of International Studies. The Stilwell Scholarship really had its genesis in the late 70s, and it's a manifestation of my grandfather, General Stilwell's, respect and admiration for the Chinese people. He, in 1920, after World War I, was the Army's first Chinese language student and served in China 3 separate tours prior to World War II. During that time, he got to kind of rub elbows with the common people of China, Lao Baixing, the old 100 names. And this is where he grew his respect and admiration for the Chinese people. In the late 70s, when China first started opening, my mother and my aunt traveled to China, and when they came back after being hosted by the Chinese People's Association for Friendship, they decided it'd be a nice thing to do to invite a member of the Friendship Association over for a stay in the U.S. And that was the first really scholar, I guess, that came to the Monterey Institute. And we've had about 35 scholars attend Monterey Institute for their master's degree.
I am one of the academics in China that opposes the globalization.
My mom, before I came here, she said she couldn't believe that, you know, a total stranger from a totally different country would do this to help you, to actually doesn't require anything back. In my opinion, this is something amazing.
The family has meant a great deal to me and to all the scholars that have received the benefit of the scholarship. It has made a difference in our lives. Had I not been the recipient of this scholarship, my life would turn out very differently.
While you're here, you're going to have to come up to our house.
They actually give you the support like a real family, like make you feel like you're a part of something special.
You know, the energy that you acquire from these young people who come over here is just extraordinary, and it enthuses you to keep going and to make sure that we do the best we can for them.
They are, you know, just such special people with such deep love for the Chinese people and for the Chinese culture, and with such deep understanding and that vision to help build bridges between people in the U.S. and people in China.
When I graduate, and in the future, I will try to help people and to carry on the things that the Stilwell family wants to convey, and, you know, just continue to be part of this.
The Chinese would say very heartwarming that it's continuing and is so successful. And I think it's both a tribute not only to the scholars that we have under the program, but to my mother, my aunt, and my grandfather, who loved the Chinese people so much. Trying to find a way to help the Chinese people through education. So the four ladies got together and founded the Stilwell Scholarship and immediately started fundraising activities. And it was a hard work, but it was really a labor of love for all of them. And they sponsored and sold tickets for screenings of movies dealing with China, had receptions with food donated by local restaurants. My aunt, who paints in the Chinese style, made some posters that they were selling. There was an annual solicitation letter. And probably the biggest thing was that in the spring of each year, my mother would take a tour to China. In the fall, my aunt would take a tour to China. And they didn't take any money, but they asked people to contribute to the Stilwell Scholarship.
Yeah, it's not easy at all. But how do you select the students, and what kind of people you're looking for to support?
There is a committee, the Stilwell Scholarship Committee, that looks at the files of all the Chinese students. And the Stilwell Scholarship is just for Chinese students pursuing a master's degree. But they screen the files of all of the Chinese students, and through a process of looking at their qualifications and their history and what they have done, make a selection for that awardee for that year.
How many students have benefited this?
There have been over 30, well over 30 have been benefited by the scholarship.
This must have changed their life, I believe.
It is a life-changing event for these students, to not necessarily to receive the scholarship, but to be able to come to the Monterey Institute and study there.
Yeah, it's not only about the financial support. It's also when the students come to the United States, and your family also give them a lot of support, right?
We do. We try and stay in touch with each student that comes over that's a Stilwell Scholar, and give them a little benefit of seeing what the United States is all about, and the culture here in the United States also. And just maybe build another pillar under that bridge between China and the U.S.
Yeah, I know Mr. Peter Wang and Grace Wang for many years, and they have the same vision. So that's why you and Peter work together, right?
Yes. And most recently and most heartwarming is that a few years ago, Peter and Grace, through the Wong Foundation, decided to sponsor another Stilwell Scholarship. And it's called now the Wong Foundation Stilwell Scholarship. And the selections are made exactly the same way of the students. But now we have doubled the number of scholarships we can award.
Yes, the students who can benefit from this. So what's the story about the students? Well, already more than 30 students benefit from the scholars, and so what have you seen about their life change?
Well, it really has changed their life, and they have gone on to make great successes of themselves in industry, in government, entrepreneurs, teachers, deans of foreign language departments in universities back in China, and just any number of activities. And of course, people are all different, so as long as they're successful and they're happy, then it's wonderful.
So how do you define success?
I think you have to ask them that question.
So they define the success by themselves?
I think so, yes.
Yes. So, well, but when you offer the scholarship to those students, and you probably have some hope or wish. So what's your wish?
Well, I think the key wish is that they become sort of ambassadors. Understand a little bit about Stilwell, of course, but more so be ambassadors between the U.S. and China, and the American people and the Chinese people, and increase the understanding and betterment of the relations.
This is very important. This is so important. I think that everybody should work on this together. So, well, you and Peter, and besides, well, all of you, and how many people, do you have enough donors, and what's the needs for this?
Well, our hope for the future of the scholarship is to be able to expand it and help more Chinese students coming to the U.S. You know, the world is an imperfect place, but the hope is that through these young scholars is that understanding will be improved and the world in the future will be a better place. I think the Stilwell Scholarship is a great opportunity for people who have been successful in life and who desire to contribute to the Chinese people and continue the legacy of Stilwell, which is the friendship between the two peoples and increasing understanding and improving the relations. And I would certainly invite anybody who is interested in learning more about the Stilwell Scholarship to contact either Peter Jesse at now the Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey, or myself. And information on our telephone numbers and emails are posted.
Yeah, actually, the General Stewart, his family has been putting so much effort to continue this friendship and support Chinese students for all these years, but they're quite low-key. Students apply for the Monterey Institute, and then they screen them. So students, when they apply for the college, they don't even know there is a scholarship exist.
That's correct. And interestingly enough, one of our more recent Stilwell scholars, when she found out that she was being offered the Stilwell Scholarship, her parents could not believe it. How could somebody they don't even know in a foreign country be offering money to help their daughter get her master's degree?
Yeah, so that's 10,000 a year, right?
Yes,
that's
for 2 years.
For 2 years,
yes.
Yeah. So it's 20,000.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's a large amount for a family in China, or for the people who really have such needs. Well, we're so honored to have you, John, and sitting here and to share the story. And we should work together to continue General Stewart's legacy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and benefit both countries.
Yes.
As a startup in Silicon Valley, innovation is our DNA. It's inside our blood. What is innovation?
Very confident.
It's a way of thinking, it's a philosophy, it's a mindset. It's very closely related to leadership.
For me, it's really about finding the right fit between the product and the market.
Have a strong technology position, a strong market impact.
Innovation can be an idea, can be a product, can be a service, or can be a thinking. It can be everything, out-of-box thinking, not limited to your background, to the past. Welcome to Innovation Dialogue. I'm Diana Dane, and today we are going to talk about Cloud Festival. Today we have Carrie Davis, and she's here to share her story, which is so inspiring. What we are doing here is to summarize, bring out the point, and give a good presentation. Help people to bring out their idea to the whole world.
It's very important to be able to spot human talent and to be a good leader.
More importantly, it's how our corporate and partners perceive the value that's come out of the event.
It was all about seizing the opportunity rather than looking at the world as a set of problems.
I want to change the paradigm of angel investing being local. I want all of us to think global and to look at great opportunities in Asia or Europe, wherever it is in the world.
Come to Ding TV. Let us work together to bring out your idea to share with the whole world.